Two things happen in November of 1861 in the Civil War that oddly, they're linked, but the linkage doesn't become clear for another 5-6 months. One is the landing of Union forces on Hilton Head, the first large invasion, if you will, of a southern state by Union forces unattached by land to the north. And Hilton Head at the time was not the Hilton Head of today. It was this little spur, kind of sandy, had plenty of bugs, plenty of snakes, but at least it gave you entree to the mainland, and that was as good a place to go as any. The 8th Maine Infantry Regiment is part of this group that lands on Hilton Head. And from Hilton Head, from the southern tip of Hilton Head, you can see the traffic that comes out of the Savannah River. Savannah River at that time was probably next to New Orleans, the most vital shipping port that the Confederacy had. And they would send all sorts of raw material. They would receive finished goods, a lot of traffic with Europe, and you could see the ships going by every day, good-sized vessels. And the Union command said, we've got to shut down the port of Savannah. And we know how it's protected because we built it. So in November of 1861, the 8th Maine is part of the group looking down from Hilton Head, and they're aware of a fort on the Savannah River, about 10 miles to the south, slightly southeast of Savannah, called Fort Pulaski. Fort Pulaski was built by the federal government of the United States. Took them years. The walls are 7.5 feet thick. They're over 20 feet high. They're brick. 20 million bricks are laid to make Fort Pulaski, which is in the form of a loose pentagon. It has one access by land off the back end towards Savannah. But if you're trying to come up the Savannah River, it's pretty imposing. Charles Olmsted is the commander of Fort Pulaski. He's a Georgian. He's actually from Savannah, young guy, and he's walking the parapet of Fort Pulaski in November of 1861. And he's listening to the chief engineer of the Confederate Army, a guy who's actually assigned to the Department of the South and Georgia and Florida, commander by the name of Robert E. Lee. And Lee has seen the plans, he's seen the fort, he's walked the fort. And he informs Charles Olmsted that while they could make it pretty warm for you, they will not be able to take this fort by bombardment. You're in good hands. Well, Charles Olmsted says, okay, feeling good now. Lee leaves. He goes up north. He takes over the Army of Northern Virginia. He's duly reassigned. And Charles Olmsted settles down. He says, well, we're going to have to keep practicing. You never know what can happen. And they anticipate that they're going to be sieged and besieged, and that they're going to be attacked by land. So he has these mortars that he practices with, and he has a constant supply of that. He has gunpowder. He has a whole munitions building on the back side of the fort away from the river. He has his guys training every day. Well, the Union command decides that, well, we think we have to take Savannah. And to take Savannah, we're going to have to get by Fort Pulaski. What do you think? They begin making plans. And in December and January, they move troops to the islands at the mouth of the Savannah River. The largest of them is Tybee Island. And there are no roads. So everything that they do to build artillery positions, particularly large artillery positions, has to be done by hand. They build a corduroy road, and the men of the Union Army are put into forced labor, where 250 men are attached by straps to these cannon and lug them overland to set them up in position so that they can aim toward and perhaps hit Fort Pulaski. Olmsted can see what's going on down there. He has a telescope. Okay. And he's just thinking, this is silly. You know, they can't do anything to me. And what he doesn't know is that these new guns that the Union Army has are what they call Parrot Rifles. They have rifling. They have right-hand 5-ring rifling coming up through the muzzle of the cannon, which imparts a spin on the cannonball, which allows it to go not only farther, but it allows it to be much more accurate than anything that they've had before. This is brand new to the war front. It was developed in West Point in 1859, but now it's going to be tried out in an actual battle. There's a dispute in Union Command, particularly on Tybee Island and on Hilton Head, on whether these Parrot Rifles are going to do anything. Oh, yeah, you talk a big game, but we haven't seen it work, and you got your novelty, sure. So they have 10,000 men ready to slog their way up through the marshland of Georgia to Savannah and try to take Fort Pulaski, either by siege or by force, but by taking men up the river. Quincy Gilmore is heading the artillery for this little venture, and he assures General Benham and General Thomas Sherman that, guys, trust me on this one, this is going to work. All right, so on the 9th of April of 1862, they send word up to Charlie Olmsted in Fort Pulaski. Charlie, appreciate your position and all, but would you like to surrender the fort? Charlie going, I don't need to surrender my fort. I can hit you from here. I don't know where the cannonball's going to land, but I can at least reach you from here. Yeah, fine. But if you don't surrender the fort, we're going to bombard you starting tomorrow. Olmsted said, I'm all set, thanks. So on the 10th of April, the Union forces, hey, we told you it was coming. And they start sending concussive cannonballs out of the muzzles of these Parrot Rifles upriver 2 miles, over 2 miles. And not only are they reaching Fort Pulaski at force, when they land, they're knocking chunks out of these 20 million brick walls. The 7.5 feet thick brick walls, 20 feet high brick walls are being concussed by these balls. They're not incendiary shells. It's like being hit on one of these things you see on the end of a chain where you're gonna just knock the building down. That's exactly what they're doing, but they're doing it from over 2 miles away. Olmsted's thinking, oh, this is not funny. Okay. Well, let me think about it. They send him another message. Charlie, gonna keep doing this tomorrow. And Olmsted said, oh, no, I can't give up the fort. I just can't. Robert E. Lee told me that you guys couldn't take this fort by bombardment. So the next day, they start in. They've already punched a hole in the wall. And now they come across the parade ground because they have the map to the fort. And they go, incendiary ball, incendiary ball, incendiary ball, across the parade ground of the fort, heading right to the munitions shed. Charlie Olmsted can't get the white flag of surrender up fast enough. In a day and a half, Fort Pulaski, impregnable according to Robert E. Lee, is surrendered. And with it marks the end of the Civil War. We just have to play it out. Because if you close off the southern states from receiving or transporting any goods or services from their ports, then you've effectively sealed them off. The men of the 8th Maine step in on day 2, and they prove themselves to be deadly accurate with these shells, and they acquit themselves so nobly. They are a standout unit. And Benham decides that if anybody should be honored on the taking of Fort Pulaski, it should be the 8th Maine Infantry. So as they come into Fort Pulaski, the first flag to be flown from the staff at Fort Pulaski is the regimental flag of the 8th Maine Infantry, William McCarthy, commanding.
Thanks for watching. And don't miss a single episode as we delve into the fascinating history of Maine's role in the Civil War. Please like and subscribe now.